We are recording.
Cool. So I was at the barbershop this weekend
Yeah.
and we were just kind of talking about haircuts and hairstyles and shit like that. And it got me reminiscing about why I started going to the barbershop to the barber that I have now. Um, just like some horror stories about bad haircuts. I remember one time I was at a barbershop who shall remain nameless, and I you know how they do like the straight razor to do your
Yes.
hairline, or if they just use the clippers to just kind of do the thing, whatever.
Correct.
The barber just like free-handed it, just like zoom, zoom, zoom. Like I like he took my hairline back like a centimeter, and I was like a lot like usually when you get a bad haircut you don't react
Yeah.
in real time, but I was like what? And he goes and he had an accent. He's like, no, I fix. I'm like, no, you just broke it. Like that is not okay. So my shit was like back here for like
Did you go anywhere or did you lay low for those 2 weeks?
yeah, it was a day before the
I
thing.
mean, that's skippable.
Had to be there at that point in time. Like it wasn't super noticeable until like I pointed it out. I remember I was like, yo, he fucked my hairline up. But you were like, now that you say it, um, I can see it. And I was like, I know, right? Um,
Sorry, I need to get a pen. The
oh no, you're good.
yeah, so I haven't had a bad haircut, partially because my haircut is
Yeah,
very much you know, very straightforward. I just get a low cut fade,
yeah,
clean up the trim. I don't really do too much extra stuff, but I have been party to a lot of
yeah.
inane conversations at a barbershop, like you know, who's fucking an old lady, who is wildly homophobic, who thinks trans people are gonna eat their children. It's it's
Right.
that is not. That's why when people online are always like, the barbershop is where you go for therapy and where you go for da 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 da. And I'm just like, listen, if that's your ministry, I don't knock it. But I'm just there for a haircut, man. I ain't really participating in all
Yeah,
these
I'm not the guy that stays after I got my haircut. Like I don't.
before appointments. Before appointments, it used to be dudes who would just
Yeah.
kick it at the barbershop. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah, 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 yeah.
now that there are appointments and you have to like go at a certain time to get your haircut at a certain time, it
That happens less.
well, there's no permission structure to do it. Now you really look like a loser. Like before, you just
Oh
had
yeah,
an
yeah,
hour to
yeah.
wait for your cut, so you would just they enjoyed it. And he was like, my barber was like, I know the dudes who miss it because they don't have anywhere to go. He's like they just hang around doing nothing. But no, I have never had a bad haircut, partially because the barrier of entry to cut my hair is lower.
I
But
feel
I
you.
have been
Yeah.
party to some terrible, terrible conversations. But most of which I wouldn't even repeat because I
Yeah,
would
yeah,
like this
yeah.
podcast to be
There's
successful one day.
right. Yeah, there's stories I heard in the barbershop as a kid that I can't tell as an adult on this podcast.
Yeah, fair enough.
Um. Oh yeah. So I was watching Joe Budden's podcast. I watched that pretty regularly, whatever. And they were talking about it was like their I think it was 800th episode or 10-year anniversary. It was like all within the same week or whatever.
Yeah,
So they were like shouting out, some of the previous members. We know what happened with that, whatever. And they got on a conversation about what do listeners want to hear? What do listeners like to hear from podcast hosts?
yeah,
And Joe's co-hosts and all of them, they were like, yeah, it's important. Like they really like when we tell our personal stories and that we have inside jokes and so on and so forth, that they can tell we have histories and things of that nature. And Joe was like, they don't give a fuck about that. He was like, they don't care about our friendship and our chemistry, which is weird to hear him say that because it feels like the original pod was built on chemistry and friendship, and also just like the podcasts I love are the ones where it feels like you're watching friends
well,
hang out.
it's a very self-aggrandizing view for him to take because it's like
Right.
the podcast blew up because Rory and Maul left, and of course he'd like to believe that none of that matters because
Right.
you know like he has a self-interest in making sure that that's the narrative that's out there.
That's a good point.
So I mean, I do think chemistry matters. I
Hmm.
think it matters a lot, but
Yeah.
I think two talented people can play it off. Like Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman didn't like each other.
Yeah, they did not like each other. at
Um, d-
all.
Deep cut, aging myself. Sam and Dave, the famous blues singers, hate each other's guts, and they performed for a decade without talking off stage, without
Yes,
having any relationship off stage,
true.
and no one would have been able to tell. It was told 20 years later, in
Right.
biographies.
Skip and Shannon, we know how that ended.
Correct. But that being said, Skip and Shannon being an example, you could feel the creative tension toward the end. Like it
Right,
wasn't,
yeah.
it
They
wasn't like
yeah.
they weren't hiding it as well as they thought they were hiding
No,
it.
no.
But and also, success is relative. That show didn't get a lot of viewers. So I don't know. I don't think it's
Yeah.
a prerequisite for success, but I do think
Mhm.
it definitely it raises the floor. No,
Yes,
I would
yes.
say it raises the ceiling. I think a podcast can be extraordinarily successful if the hosts like each other, but I don't think you need to like each other to have like a baseline level of competence on the podcast. What do you think?
I think I think when when you're starting something new, I think that's really important, especially if like if the hosts are not like big not big
Yeah,
personalities, but big like well known at that time.
yeah,
Like I think for example, like if Kevin Hart and fucking Bruce, not Bruce, like yeah, Bruce Willis were like, oh, let's do a podcast together.
yeah.
Like they're both huge, so people are gonna listen to that because they're huge and they have
Right.
big fan bases. Like their chemistry won't matter as much. But if it's, you know, some new podcast hosts or, regular people,
Yeah.
that's important. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
At least
I
to start
agree.
off with, because that's
I agree. I
that's
mean,
how you
how
build it.
we knew each other for 3 years before we turned the mic on. So,
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
it does matter.
Yeah.
But I would agree with that.
Yeah, I always think podcast hosts, I think to me, I feel like that's like not a kiss of death, but it's never a good sign when they start to like overlook that aspect of the art form, you know?
Correct. I don't, you can tell, like, I don't know if it's necessary to be successful, but you can tell which
Yeah.
podcasts are like, they only talk when the cameras are on. And you
Right.
can tell which podcasts are like, they hang out other words. Do you remember the verses between the Locks and Dipset?
Yeah.
And it was like,
Exactly.
you
That's
could
just
tell the
very
Locks
perfect.
were lifelong friends and Dipset are coworkers.
We're dudes that just had got money together.
Right. Like
That's
you
it.
could tell like Jadakiss pulls up at Styles' kids' birthday parties. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
and like Freaky Zeke and Camera ain't spoken 10 years. They was like, we gotta go on stage, man. How you
Yeah.
been?
Right. Let's get this money, man.
Yeah, that's it. That is
That's
the
very
gist of
true.
it.
It's funny because like even like okay, like so the new Captain America just came out, whatever, or just came out. And I think a big part of the reason why that part of the MCU has been so successful
Yeah,
even after Endgame and like the Falcon and Winter Soldier was because of the chemistry of Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan.
yeah,
Like they're like very close friends. Like they've done interviews and like Anthony Mackie did an interview. He was like, Sebastian Stan's my kid's birthday presents. Like
yeah.
we're like that's my boy. He's like he literally had an interview. He's like, there's not a time in life where I've needed him and he did not show up for me.
That's
And
pretty dope.
you can see that on screen when they have their shows together, when they do their interviews together, when they're at award shows, shit like that. Like that shit does matter, Like think about like we watch a lot of movies.
Yeah,
We've seen rom-coms where we find out that the actors hated each other, and you're like, oh, that's why that movie sucked.
yeah.
Like,
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I'll never find out about the chemistry on that Captain America movie because the MCU is not. I'm out. I'm out. Endgame
you're
was my
good. You're
exit
good.
ramp. I
It
will
actually was
pop
pretty good.
in.
It was a fun watch. It was a fun watch. I'm not gonna hold you.
I've
Um,
heard, it's funny. I've heard bad things from super Marvel fans, and I've
mhm.
heard pleasant things from people who have tepid interest
Yeah,
in Marvel. So I don't know what's going on. I'll never know. I tapped out. I went and saw Wakanda Forever. We could do a whole other pod on my feelings about that movie.
yeah. We'll have to do
Uh,
that some other day.
but my real exit ramp outside of like the Black Panther series, just because you got to
Right.
support that off GP, was Endgame. I was like, this is a perfect bow on this. I don't really need
Yeah.
to see any more of these.
Yeah. I feel you. But I'm looking forward to the Thunderbolts coming out here. That's supposed to be good. But
I don't even know. God bless. I wish them best of luck.
oh no, you're good. It's like
I'll
yeah.
never know
Anyway,
what Thunderbolt is.
that's cool. We'll pivot
Thor in
off that.
pajama pants 7. I'm good. You can keep that.
Yeah, I definitely am good for if there's never another Thor movie. Shout out to Chris Hemsworth though. Yeah. So okay. So did you see Anthony Edwards' quote about
At the
not
All-Star
wanting to
game.
be the face? Yeah, not wanting to be the face of the league.
And so, yes, I did. I think that's honestly the NBA's problem is that everyone wants to just show up for work and go home. And it's
Yeah.
like, somebody has to, it's hard because you don't want to force some player to do it because it can feel forced, but
Right.
someone has to take that mantle, man, because stories need heroes and villains, and
Yes.
NBA has no characters. It just far too often I feel like I'm turning on the game and I'm just watching a pickup game with just like the best
Hmm.
players in the world, and because no one wants to be a character in this story, they just want to hoop,
Right.
and that's fine. Like it's fine when Kevin Durant just wants to hoop, when Bron and Curry are willing to do the face of
The
the league
heavy
stuff,
lifting. Yeah.
but no one wants to I
Now they
never
all want to be like Kevin Durant in a sense.
correct.
Like
I
they all want to play
never
the Kevin
wanted to
Durant role.
do the I never thought it was cute the Nikola Jokic thing. Like
Oh,
the
I fucking
whole
hate it. The whole I want my horses and I want to be out in Serbia. That shit. Yeah, I hate it. I
first
don't
of
care about
all, motherfucker, you gonna come
basketball.
here
That
and
whole
take your
thing.
I'm losing you. You don't have any. You back? You back? One, two, three.
Shit. Yeah, I think so. You hear me? One, two, three.
You're a solid 10 seconds behind.
You got me? Shit. Um, I can log out and log back in, and
Okay,
we can just
doke.
pick back up.
That's fine. We know how to cut it up now, so it's fine.
Yeah. All right. Cool. I'm back.
Yep. How much time is this nigga spending on an intro? Lately, I've been feeling like God pierced the memento. I just set the bar and niggas fall under it like a limbo. The family,
Check,
all that
check,
matters.
check.
I just out here with my kinfolk. One, two, three.
One, two, three.
Got it. We're good.
Perfect. All
You
right.
want to pick that up or just scrap it? Because it's
Yeah, I'll pick it. Yeah, we can just start over. If you're cool with that.
okay. All right. So you introduce it then.
All right. So I know everybody's been talking about the NBA and the ratings problems or whatever the case may be and all that. Um, and they asked Anthony Edwards, how did he feel about, did he want to be the face of the league? And he said, no, I don't want to. Y'all can get y'all got Wimby for that. What are your thoughts on his laissez-faire attitude?
So first of all, I don't think the face of the league can be someone not born, not an American born player. I just
That's
don't
a
think.
pretty common sentiment. Yep.
Um, Second of all, stories like a lot of people like sports aren't actually about the sport. They're about
The
competition. They're
stories.
about storytelling. They're about the
Yeah.
mythology built around it. And I think the NBA by and large is lacking that story. And, it's fine. It's hard because you don't want to force anyone to do it
Right.
but no one turns on a sporting event to feel like they're watching a bunch of dudes at work. And
Right.
far too often, it feels like I'm watching a bunch of dudes at work. The best in the world, but it's still a bunch of dudes at work. There's no
Right.
overarching story. The jerseys are changing all the time. There's no rivalries. The coaches are in sweatpants. It just feels like I walked into a Lifetime Fitness and I'm watching dudes get a run in.
Yeah.
And, I don't it's fine when Kevin Durant wants that, as long as Bron and Curry are there to, they were all equal players.
Right.
Rank them however you want. I don't get that bait, but like they were all of
Right.
equal stature. They're all NBA players. They're all max contract players. They're all, if you go first, I'll pick the second. It's fine. I don't care.
Right. You're winning
You know,
championship either way.
correct. All of them are championship players. It's fine when Durant wants to just show up and hoop and go home because LeBron and Steph are willing to be the stories of the league. And
Right.
it just feels like everyone wants to do the Durant thing now or
Hmm.
host a podcast. And like someone put up the graphic that Paul George had more podcast clips than games played. And it's just we're just uh,
Shout out to Podcast P.
yeah, man. And look, get it how you live. I get it. You're gonna be a non-basketball player way longer than a basketball player,
Correct.
just the
Yes.
way your life expectancy works. But someone has to care about this.
Yeah. Someone's got to give a shit.
Someone has to give a shit, and someone has to want to leave the game in a better place than they arrived.
Right.
And I just feel like, and a lot of it is the incentive structure. The guys before had to try in the All-Star game because that might have been their chance at a marketing deal. But you don't really
Yep.
need a marketing deal when you're clearing 50 M's. I get it,
True.
but
And we have more channels now. We don't, it's not as hard. Well, previously for all the
yeah,
streaming services and shit, it wasn't as hard to find games. Back then you could watch. You only had two, three channels to watch games on.
correct. There was a lot less to do. But
Right.
I worry that, you know, no one, everyone's getting theirs, and no one's looking out for the big pie in the bigger picture of the league.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen when we look up? Like, I have never been less interested in the NBA right than I am today. Um, I can count on one hand the number of
Now the
full
playoffs
length
are gonna be lit,
games.
but I feel you. Yeah.
I can count on one hand the number of full length games I've watched this year. And so I don't know. To answer your question about how I feel about it, I just wish these dudes cared more.
Yeah.
And I think they care about the craft of playing basketball. You don't get to where they are without caring about
Right.
that. But
Yeah.
I just wish they cared about the league.
Yeah. I don't
It
think they
just
care
feels
about
like no
the
one's
health
in
of
it
the
for
league
anything bigger than themselves.
or the business of basketball. Right. Yeah. I don't think they understand that there's the game of basketball and then there's
Yep.
the game of basketball. There's the
Correct.
politics, the business, the socioeconomic aspect to it that they're not really grasping, which is weird. It's funny. I think I saw it. Did you watch the Court of Gold documentary, the Netflix documentary on the Olympics?
I have
So
not. No.
it was really good. So there's a clip where Kevin Durant is talking about basketball in the Olympics and what it means to him, and he starts crying. And he's like, got embarrassed. He's like, I'm sorry, y'all. He's like, this game just means so much to me. He's like, this game saved my life. You know what I mean? He's
Yeah.
like, I was able to take my family out of a bad situation. Um, and I think him and Bron, they're kind of the last of the superstar players who came from nothing. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like Steph Curry, NBA, NBA son, D'Angelo Ball,
Yeah.
rich kid from Chino Hills.
Kenyon Martin Jr., LeBron's kid, Melo's
Right.
kid, Gary Payton's kid.
Yeah.
No, what? Well, so yes, the NBA is becoming basically a royal family, and
Yeah,
part of
it's
that
in a
is
suburban league.
oh wait, it's totally a league of suburbanites. But part of that
Yeah.
is the NBA selects for height so aggressively that
Hmm.
genetics just play a bigger role in becoming a professional athlete than they do in other sports.
That's true.
Like the height requirement is so self-selecting that you almost have to be the kid of professional athletes to
Right.
be a
You have
well-coordinated
to have
six
some sort
foot
of
six
freakish
person,
genetics.
right? I think it was something
Right.
like I have to look up the stat, but I read a book and it was like what percentage of 7 footers are in the NBA? 1.8% of the world's 7 footers make the NBA, which means
Yeah.
if you reach 7 feet tall, you have a 1 in 100 chance of making hundreds of millions of dollars just by being nothing else. No other
Yeah.
factors, no
Right. Just
nothing.
if you
Just
can
being
walk,
7 feet tall. If you can walk
yeah,
and chew gum and you're 7 feet tall,
you
you
may
have
have a
a one
job.
in 100 chance of making the NBA. That's
And
how
compare that to the
aggressive
one in a million chance you have of just making the NBA as just a
billion. Like
Uber. Right. Yeah. Billion.
there's
Shit.
been
Yeah.
less than 5,000 NBA players in world
In the
in
history of the league. Yeah.
correct. And that's over since I think the game was founded in the 50s. So
Right.
in 70 years, 5,000 humans made the NBA.
Right.
And so it's going to become more like it's because you're self-selecting for height so aggressively.
Right.
Genetics is all that drives your height, and you're going to end up with a
True.
bunch of athlete kids in the league because that's just the way genetics work.
That's very
Um,
true. That's a good point. I never even thought of that.
even before just the kid of an athlete, like in the 90s, they did a study, and it was like the overwhelming majority of NBA players had one or two parents that played high level D1 sport, any sport, volleyball,
Right.
swimming, anything. It was just like Jalen
Yeah.
Rose's dad
Like
played
JaVale McGee, his
professionally.
mom. Yeah. Jalen Rose's dad, JaVale McGee's mom.
You
Um,
don't have to fall far from the family tree to find a high level athlete and NBA player because the selection
correct.
process
Yeah.
is so aggressive from a genetic standpoint. So
Yeah. That's a fact. Yeah. Like John Morant, his dad was supposed to go league, but got he ended up getting someone pregnant. That kid
yeah.
became Ja. So he had to,
Now
give
the
up his
money's
hoop
so
dreams.
aggressive now. They don't Jason Tatum, we didn't even know he had his kid at like 18. We didn't even know about it till the kid was like 23.
Right.
Or no, till Jason Tatum was like 23. So they got that whole system sorted out. Did you
Facts.
see them boys on a boat with no women?
Yes, I did see them. Yeah, it looked like the lamest thing ever. And not even just because it was dudes on the boat. They just all just look super lame.
So I don't know the name. I'm not gonna say the name of the pod. But they just had like a live meetup, and it was like 100 dudes in a conference room,
Yep.
which is already okay. Men are allowed. Like if it was a hunting podcast, it'd be a bunch of dudes too. So okay, fine.
Yeah.
I'll stall you out there. But then they had an after party on a yacht in Miami, and there were no women in attendance.
I mean, to be honest, because of the dudes who host that podcast, it's probably safer that there were no women in attendance. I
I'm not
think
talking
people would
about
fuck with
safety.
you.
I'm talking about the
As
fact that none of them
Oh, I
thought
know,
it
I
was
know.
strange to be on a yacht at
I
2
don't think
a.m.
any
with
of
no
them.
women.
I don't think any of them could have gotten a woman to go on the yacht with them. I'm gonna
That's
be
my
honest with
point. Do
you.
you know how swaggerless you have to be to not be able to get any women to go on your yacht in Miami or
Yeah, dude.
anywhere, really?
It's
You
it
know how
was
much women love swimsuits and pools and
and
boats and shit?
Instagram and content. Yeah, dude. I've gone on dates and I'm pretty sure like that girl just wanted to go on dates with me just to have shoot content. Like I've had that happen in real life. You
I
know what I'm
was
saying?
like, I was
Like
like, I don't think I've ever even been to a
that's
pool with no
crazy.
women, much less a yacht with no women.
Yeah. It's like that Kendrick quote from Euphoria was you thought the money and the fame would make you go away. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like you still lame as fuck. I don't care how famous you get. If you're a loser or an asshole, you're still gonna be a loser or an asshole with money.
I don't know what these new dudes are on. If
But
I
their whole
walked on a boat and I looked
there was no
around
women.
and there were no women, I'd be like, "Hey man, I'll holler at y'all, man. Look, y'all enjoy yourselves, but
Yeah,
I'm gonna find a little bar or something to kick it with. I can't do this. I can't do this, man. I'm cool off the
no, that
like
shit is crazy.
I'm not opposed to like, guys not out or whatever. That's why I wasn't tripping off the pod itself being male only. Cause like I said, it could be a
Yeah,
hunting podcast, it could be a video game podcast. Those are going to be aggressively selected. Men are going to be at those. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's
right.
weird. But the after set on a boat with
Yeah,
no
that's
hose,
crazy.
I mean, what's going on, man? We need to talk about this.
It's crazy. Yeah, we lose recipes. But also, what's weird to me is, well, not even weird. Have you seen any of that podcast content
No,
before, like at
no.
all? Okay, so if you've heard about one of the guys, I won't say his name because he doesn't deserve that attention, but his whole thing is he literally brings women on the podcast and screams and yells at them aggressively about their behavior and shit. Like he like does the mansplaining shit and like the whole like I don't have a woman because I don't want one right now and you're worthless because you do only that whole shit. Like it's very like Kevin Samuels coded pretty much, but just even more
Well,
abrasive.
so Kevin Samuels, I didn't listen to him, but
I didn't
he
really
was
listen to
just
it.
as
I just
hard
saw the
on men as
clips.
he was on women. So it was a
Fair,
bit,
that is true.
it
That's
was,
true. So it wasn't as misogynistic, I guess.
it didn't go as viral because it's much more profitable to bash women online, but he
True.
definitely we can't flatten it and just make all those podcasts for the one we're talking about.
Yeah.
And so I just, you know. It's
That shit was crazy.
it's not even that it's not just that I don't think these dudes are gay or anything, but like
No, yeah, yeah.
it's just the indifference to wanting women around. I don't know very many men who would want to hang out on a boat without women. Like I don't it's just
I thought that
I
was the whole point of boats.
I'm there for them. I don't even really like this shit.
Yeah, like I thought the whole point was like aside from like aquatic warfare,
Yeah.
it was just like to spend time
Like
with beautiful
I
women
would
and your
rather
friends. I don't
yeah.
in nice weather. I don't understand what they were doing.
Oh
Uh
man.